Apex has never really been afraid of controversial changes that will annoy the community, and they've done many, like the one that will affect you for the rest of your life while playing Apex, another that was so controversial they reverted it only a week later, and a change that nearly made a war between pros and casuals. And there's that many, I can make a whole video about them, so let's go. But first, this change was so brutal the Legend has never recovered from it, and this is the lifeline nerf. In Season 5, Respawn gave Lifeline a shield with infinite health that would go up anytime you res a Legend, and it made it really annoying to fight her because she just had an indestructible wall, and people got very annoyed about this. So only a few seasons later, in Season 9, this got removed. It was very short-lived, and if you used it, you will have a tracker that says you used it, which is a huge OG ticket. And this getting removed made a lot of people quit maining Lifeline, and she's never recovered to this day, although there are some buffs for her in the future which are looking promising. But this next thing may be the most controversial removal on this list, although there's a few which are contending for it. And this is the removal of punch boosting. If you don't remember, a few seasons ago, you could do this thing called punch boosting, where it's pretty self-explanatory. When you were sliding down the hill and you turned around and punched, you would go faster because you were just constantly adding speed with every punch. And it was an extremely accessible movement tech. Anybody could do this. You could literally do it on a dance pad. But Respawn didn't like this, mainly because it messed up rotation times on maps, and it made third parties a lot easier because if you heard gunshots, just punch your way there, bro. So Respawn removed it, and we didn't find out until content creators got to playtest the season, so we got some good reactions as soon as they found out it was nerfed. But that's not the only controversial thing about movement tech in this list, but onto the next controversial change. It's basically everything around Caustic. He had almost a running meme because every season, up until Season 12, Caustic had a major issue where he was bouncing between nerfs and buffs, and devs physically couldn't balance him and everybody was getting mad. Until Season 12, where Respawn did one change which has basically fixed him. And the change was the ability to break his gas traps by shooting them. Of course, it's made some people mad, but mostly it fixed Caustic, and we haven't had troubles with him for nearly 2 years. On to the next thing though, because I'm pretty sure this is the contender for the most controversial change ever to Apex. And it's about the Kraber, and you probably know what this is, because the Kraber is this almighty god gun that can one-shot anybody if you can aim for their head, and it has a huge reputation from Titanfall 1 to Titanfall 2, which made people very annoyed when Respawn nerfed it to no longer be able to one-shot anybody if they have a purple helmet and decent armor, which is a huge shame. And it took a lot of like the god gun mystique away from the Kraber and kind of made it a normal sniper where it's not an instant pickup if you see it anymore. And I assume this change was made in an effort to make the game a bit less RNG based, but it's a battle royale game, it's always going to be somewhat RNG based. And because, let's admit it, this change was brought on by pros complaining about it, a lot of people took their hatred towards pros, and it's still a big point of contention today about pros got this nerfed and they're ruining the game, but I'm not going to get involved in that, get involved in the comments about it. On to the next controversial change, and this one may surprise some of the new players, but the complete edition of the Rampage was majorly controversial because it was released in a really powerful state and took ages to be dropped to the state it's in today. Once again, it seemed to be an issue of nerfs and buffs. Respawn couldn't really get down how they wanted the Rampage to act, and it was in a position where you could melt anybody in seconds with it for a long time. Not to mention the seemingly endless glitches where people could infinitely charge it. So comment if you remember this one, because this is quite a niche one. These next two controversial changes are not very niche though, because you most likely got annoyed at this yourself. And this is the addition of the two new heirloom types. Heirloom recolors, obviously these are controversial, and reactive recolors. These were so damn controversial, as you've probably heard me say a million times. All the hate that Respawn got led to them discontinuing $160 reactive recolors forever. They even said it themselves. And if you're not aware, Respawn got that much backlash and had to discontinue these because they were selling this right here for $160. I'm not joking. And the addition of the heirloom recolors obviously were controversial as well, because you're paying the same price of an heirloom for a recolored heirloom. Although people have kind of softened up to them a bit more, now they bring brand new animations to the old heirloom and the recolor. Speaking of reactive recolors though, one has been added to the files and is coming to the store very soon, so let's see if Respawn keeps their promise of never selling them at heirloom prices again. On to the next thing though, who remembers the Iron Crown event? Probably not many of you because it was 4 years ago, but this had one of the most controversial things in Apex's history. Basically, you know how collection events function today. You can buy skins straight up for Apex coins if you like them, and if you want to get a random skin, you buy a pack. But when collection events originally came out, it was not this way. It was a straight gambling machine, where if you wanted one of the skins, you just had to buy packs until they dropped the skin you wanted. There was absolutely no function to straight up buy skins, and this caused an unbelievable, inconceivable amount of drama. Huma. I'm not going to go over all of it, but basically it resulted in devs saying some questionable things to fans, and then eventually introducing the system we know and kind of hate today, where you can straight up buy skins for $18 a pop. Much better, right? But I may have a controversial take on this next one, because I think the game is much better without these golden knockdown shields. And if you haven't been playing the game for long, you probably won't know what I mean, but around a year ago in Apex, if you got a golden knockdown shield, it contained a perk called self-revive. So essentially, if both of your teammates were down or even dead, and you got knocked as well, you wouldn't insta-die. You would have a second chance to revive using the gold knockdown shield. And the animation to self-revive yourself took so long, honestly, 90% of the time it wouldn't work, you'd just get caught because it made that much noise, but 10% of the time you would get back up and you would basically have a second wind at fighting. But this item was extremely annoying in final rings, where you'd be fighting a team, all three of them would be on the ground with their knockdown shields up, and you couldn't finish them, the ring was closing in, and then they win. And also, guess what, reoccurring theme coming up, pros hated it. So Respawn did eventually remove it, and I think it was for the best, because honestly, this thing was really annoying, and that's what I'm going to leave it at before I get dragged in the comments, but I will never get dragged as much as arenas did. And the change Respawn did to arenas was also very controversial, because the change was, well, they removed it in Season 16. Arenas was a whole permanent mode, well, it was advertised as permanent, clearly it's not because it's gone now, where 2 teams of 3 would go against each other in a round-based system, and whoever won the most rounds won. It sounds kind of like CSGO, but unfortunately its flow was really bad, and it was rampant with cheaters and hackers and boosters. It just wasn't a fun mode. Although it did bring one of the most elusive badges ever, which is super rare now, which is the 100 win streak arenas badge. Basically, if you wanted Ash's face on this badge, you had to win 100 games in a row on arenas, which was an impossible task, and most of the people who got it unfortunately boosted for it. And arenas was removed in Season 16 because a lot of the player base just didn't play arenas, so it was useless to have in the game. Luckily, we now have mixtape as a permanent mode, taking the place of arenas, which is far better. But most of the stuff I've talked about getting removed never got added back. Unlike this next thing, tap strafe. Yes, at one point, a lot of you won't believe this, but Respawn genuinely were set on removing tap strafe, and announced its removal, had an update ready to remove it because of all the controversy around it.
I can't tap strafe?
But they went back on themselves and ended up not removing it, mostly because of the community backlash first of all, and also content creators talking to Respawn and going, yo, people love this, we can figure this out, don't remove it. And since then, tap strafe has never been removed. It's still a nuisance to a lot of people, but it's still here. So that was definitely a weird period in Apex's history that not a lot of people remember. Unlike this next thing, which I'm sure most of you remember, and you're gonna feel the effects of forever, which is a certain change that Respawn did with coins. Is it ringing any bells? Yes, last season they increased the price of coins pretty much everywhere in the world to adjust for inflation. Places like the UK got more expensive, Brazil got more expensive, Argentina got more expensive, to the point where I'm pretty convinced 90% of the player base now has to pay more for Apex coins. Obviously Respawn did this for inflation reasons, Fortnite has also done similar things, but this is one of the rare changes that will directly affect everybody. But what are your thoughts on this? Because it is quite a controversial topic, although I do see why it had to be done. And I was going to make a joke transitioning into this next thing, but I think the comments would rip me apart because this is a bit of a sensitive topic. Because this was the day back in Season 11 where Respawn accidentally nerfed aim assist for everybody, and nobody knew. A lot of people were complaining the game didn't feel right, but they didn't realise why. Until Respawn came out with a bit of a goofy tweet saying, well, we goofed with the launch of Escape, aim assist on console was unintentionally set to PC values. It's back to normal now. So that basically means the console aim assist was taken from 0.6 to 0.4, essentially nerfing it by a third. And this makes me wonder if these changes were done to secretly test how the community reacts to an aim assist nerf. As we know from recent interviews, Respawn are thinking about nerfing the aim assist potentially. And believe it or not, people weren't very happy, so I wonder if this potentially delayed an aim assist nerf. And finally, one of the biggest controversial changes to Apex was back in Season 6, where Respawn added Evo shields and made another strange change to shields. They removed 25 HP from every single shield in Apex, making the time to kill considerably lower, and this did annoy a lot of people because people play Apex for a high TTK experience, and this nerf was received that badly. There's compilations of every streamer complaining about it, and the feedback was so severe. Respawn put out a blog saying after the feedback they're reverting the shield nerf of removing 25 HP from every shield, and then the game was calm again. And this whole fiasco went to show the community's voice does matter. If a change is really that bad, you should talk about it, and Respawn definitely will take action, and I think that's what we've probably learned from today's video. But how many of these were you around to experience? 1, 2, 3, all of them, tell me. And also, please subscribe if you like these videos. I've got 2 major projects coming up soon, and I hope you guys like them.